If you sense that God is calling you, well, explore it, figure it out, and discern well. But don't drag your feet.
Hello and welcome to Kept in Her Heart, where we talk about all things faith-related. I'm your host, Jenny Fuchs. Today, Father David Blume joins us from the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis. He's the Director of Vocations, and he's going to tell us more about the vocations process. Welcome, Father Blume.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. So tell us, what does the process of discerning a vocation look like?
Well, that process is going to look different from one person to another because everyone's going to be coming from a different point of view and a different perspective, different background. But if you were to go out and look at lists of discernment activities, what do I need to do to discern my vocation? You will find a lot of different lists of things. But on those lists, you're going to see some common things. The first one, of course, is going to be prayer. And we need to be going before the Lord and asking of Him, Lord, please speak to my heart. Help me to hear your voice. Lead me and guide me and help me to know your will. I would encourage someone who is discerning their vocation to go before the Blessed Sacrament. Find that adoration chapel and spend time there. Maybe once a week for certain, but maybe more often if your schedule allows it. You don't have to spend 8 hours a day in the Adoration Chapel, but you should be coming before the Blessed Sacrament. And then I would say Marian devotion is very important. Ask of Mary for the grace you need to discern your vocation well and to hear the voice of the Lord. And she will obtain for you the graces you need. The next, I would encourage we all have those top 3 saints in our life. Maybe it's the top 5, but at least 3. And go to those top 3 saints and ask for them to intercede, that you would know the will of God in your vocation. And then, of course, I almost didn't mention it. I almost wasn't going to mention it because it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it, and that is you have to frequent the sacraments. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to Mass, you're receiving the Eucharist, you're going to confession, you are seeking the Lord through the beautiful devotional activities of the Church, through the sacraments. You're leaning into all that God has for you, which is right there at your parish. And then there's something else at your parish, and that is a priest. And I would encourage someone discerning their vocation to talk to their parish priest. And you might know them, they might know you, or if you're from a very large parish, maybe they don't have a clue who you are. Go ahead and talk to them anyway. Try to see if you can get on their calendar. And just let them know that you are, what's going on in your heart, and see what wisdom they have to offer you. Sure. Now, one thing they're probably going to do is they're going to encourage you to see the vocation director. And that's a great thing to do, but I think it's really good to start with your parish priest. Sure. And especially if you actually know your parish priest to some degree. Now, there's a lot of resources out there also that are available, and you can go to a lot of different websites. Our website at the Archdiocese is 10,000vocations.org, and that's 10000vocations.org. It's a little takeoff on Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. We want it to be 10,000 vocations.
Sure.
I don't think the government is going to change it, even if we hit 10,000 vocations, but who knows? So a lot of good resources are available out there. Some of those are listed on our website, but there's also another website, gopriest.com. And they will send you, for men discerning their vocation, they will send 2 different books free of charge. And then there's other books that you can order that may be of some help.
So I've mostly been talking to you about priestly vocations because that's, I think, your main focus as a vocations director. But what would the process look the same if you were discerning joining a convent or something similar?
Sure. Actually, I believe it would. I mean, we're talking about the same God. We're talking about the God who loves us and has a call on our lives, regardless whether that's a young woman or a young man or someone who's not so young. And so the Lord has a call on our lives, and the Holy Spirit speaks to our hearts similarly. So prayer and adoration and seeking the sacraments, Marian devotion, all of this is very important. And so now what, of course, is different are the resources that are available. I know for a lot of women it's actually somewhat frustrating to figure out what is the next step. Mm-hmm. At the Office of Vocations, we can help with that to some degree.
Sure.
But I did have a young woman, I will always remember, she said, Father, you know, if a guy is thinking about being a priest, he can go to the college seminary. And then if he senses that the Lord is calling him to priesthood, he can go to the major seminary. And he has a spiritual director, and he has a formation director, and he has all of this support along the way. Yeah. And he has a path. For us women, we don't have a path. Mm-hmm. We have 500 paths. And she said it's very confusing. Sure. So one of the things I was hoping to do, and have done to some degree, in the Office of Vocations is to make a path for women. And so we have done a number of things over the years. We've had a wonderful retreat that we've been doing now for quite a few years. We also have an evening with the Archbishop and religious sisters where we have dinner. And then for 4 years, we had a discernment house for women. And that was very rich, and a lot of good things came out of that. So there certainly are a lot of good resources out there that are available for women who are discerning, and it is a little more complicated in terms of the number of paths.
Sure.
You have a lot of religious orders to explore and to discern. For the man who's thinking about being a priest, he studies for a diocese, and the diocese says, here's where you go to seminary, and here's what you need to do.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about that, and whether that's the same in all of the dioceses in the U.S. or whether that varies by diocese. So if a person in our archdiocese comes to you and they say, okay, I think I've got a call to the priesthood, what do I do?
Sure.
What does that path look like?
Okay. What it really, the first question is, do you have a college degree? Okay. And how old are you? Those two questions are really critical, because if you're a young man and you do not have a college degree, then we have a college seminary, which would be a very good fit for you. Now, there's many other questions, about, what's going on in your heart and how is the Lord leading you? Are your parents on board? What's your GPA? Can you be accepted into the University of St. Thomas? Can you be accepted? There's a whole process. Sure. But the first few questions are really, do you have a college degree? And that's one of the key things. And then, how old are you? Okay. So, and if you're older and you have a college degree, mm-hmm. then you would go to our major seminary. And so we have St. John Vianney Seminary over here for guys who are working towards a college degree. Okay. And they live in the seminary, they pray in the seminary, there'd be a lot of activities there.
And that's called the minor seminary?
Actually, we call it the college seminary.
The college seminary? Yep. Okay. All right.
And then over here we have our graduate level seminary, which we often refer to as the major seminary. Mm-hmm. And so men there are entering in with a college degree, okay. and now they're starting graduate studies. It's more complicated than that, because some of the men come in and they have a college degree, but they don't have the philosophy credits and they don't have the theology credits.
Sure.
And so they need to work on those for a couple of years before they enter into studying graduate level courses.
That was my secondary question, because you can have a college degree, but maybe it was in business or maybe it was in architecture, right? It was something completely unrelated, but if you have a degree, say in philosophy or theology, then that's already going to fit into your major studies.
That's right.
Better.
That's right. And our college seminary prepares a man to go to major seminary.
Okay.
So they make sure that he has all the college credits that he needs, and that he has everything he needs to go to the major seminary.
Okay.
Now, a guy who's got a college degree in some other area besides philosophy is going to maybe has a degree in business or engineering or something.
Right.
He's not going to have all those credits, and so he needs to pick up the 30 hours of philosophy and the 12 hours of theology, and he has to live in a seminary environment for 2 years before he would start to take those graduate level courses.
In the first few years of seminary, a lot of people are still discerning whether they have that call to the priesthood or not. What does that process of discernment look like in those first few years of seminary?
Sure. Well, of course, it depends. For myself, when I entered the seminary, I was still discerning, but at a very low level, because I had taken not quite 2 years, but at least a year and a half to really discern. And so I was in a good place. Sure. And I never really looked back, and I never really had to discern very much in the seminary. I sensed this is where God wanted me, and I was at peace. And so, but that's not the case for everyone. And so guys are still discerning when they come into seminary. Now that is certainly true at the college level.
Right.
Okay. Guys are oftentimes coming right out of high school, entering into the college seminary and entering into their freshman year at college. And they're discerning, they're praying and seeking God's will. Guys who are coming in to the major seminary, they've got maybe more life experience. They have a whole set of things that maybe they have already discerned through in life.
Sure.
And so I think the discernment process is maybe a little bit easier at that level.
Sure.
But guys still are discerning, and we have guys at every level of seminary coming to that point where they realize, I think God is calling me in another direction.
Sure. And what happens at that point? They say that they discerned out. I hear that terminology a lot. So basically they were there, they were going through it, and they're like, you know what, I think God's maybe calling me to marriage or to singlehood or just to step out for a while. Mm-hmm. So then they just sort of put their degree on hold and then go live life and then come back if God calls them back, or how does that work?
Sure. So in the seminarian has a spiritual director that he meets with twice a month. And so that spiritual director is asking them questions about, what's happening in your prayer. Is there anything that the Lord seems to be speaking to you about? What's going on here? And what is the Lord? Really, it comes down to what is the Lord saying? Yeah. There's also a formation director. Every man has a formation director. And so that formation director is, they're working through all kinds of, a lot of human issues.
Sure.
Okay. And there could be a guy in the seminary for whom a set of things in the seminary don't work very well. He's supposed to be at morning prayer in the morning, but he isn't. He's still sleeping, or whatever it could be,
Right.
It could be a whole lot of things. There may be all kinds of different challenges in his life, and so he's working on those with his formation director. So he has the support of the spiritual director, the formation director, certainly the rector and others, and his vocation director, and he has others in the process who are aware of how he's doing. And it's not always the man saying, I think I am being called in a different path. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it may be seminary faculty who are saying, we think you're being called on a different path.
Sure.
We don't believe that this is actually where God is calling you.
Okay.
And it may be we don't think this is the right time, or we don't think this is the right vocation.
Sure.
And so it's there's a whole lot of support in this. You're not discerning in a vacuum. You're discerning with others and with the support of others who care very much about your vocation, and they desire God's will for you. And I always tell every guy, I say, the only thing I want for you is God's will. And it's not about my will. It's not about the Archbishop's will. It's not even about your will. What I want for you is God's will. And if we can find that, then the whole church wins. So that's the real goal in the seminary. And for anyone who has not fully discerned, and even if they have fully discerned, we want to make sure that this is the right path.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that's kind of the path for like a parish priest, or your typical, there's not a typical priest, but you know what I mean. What if you're maybe called to a different order, maybe the Franciscan friars, or a different order like that of priests or brothers? How does that path look different?
Sure. It does look different, and it looks different even from one religious order to another. And so each religious community has its own standards and own steps of formation, application and formation. And so as a diocesan vocation director, I'm very intimately connected with all the steps of a man coming into the diocese, coming in as a seminarian for the Archdiocese. But I don't know a lot about the process for entering any particular religious order. Now, most religious orders are asking for the man to have a degree, but not everyone. And that changes things up too.
Definitely,
Yeah.
So who pays for the college, or how does the debt situation work? If your seminarians are coming in and they're getting 7 to 8 years of college, and they're coming out, I imagine, with a fair amount of debt, are they paying it along the way? Is the Archdiocese responsible for that? What if they discern out? How does that work?
Sure. Very important question, because everything has to be paid for, right?
Unfortunately.
When a man who's entering the college seminary comes to St. Thomas, he receives a scholarship, as does every student going to St. Thomas. There's also the possibility of financial aid. The Archdiocese picks up room and board.
Okay.
And so between those sources, I always hope that somehow it all comes together and that this guy can enter, and that finances do not keep him or prevent him from entering the seminary.
Sure.
But there are situations where it does. It doesn't happen all the time, or it doesn't happen frequently, but it does happen. For the seminarian that goes on to the major seminary, pretty much everything is covered through the Catholic Services Appeal. Tuition is covered, room and board is covered, and then also health insurance is covered. We want guys to see their doctor. We want them to stay healthy.
Sure.
And so these expenses are covered. And there are going to be personal expenses, but you have to change the oil in the car and put on new tires, and there's other things that you have to do in life. Those are not covered.
Sure.
So.
Okay. And so it would be covered up to the time that they discern out, and discerning out doesn't mean you have to pay back, whatever was covered to date.
That's right.
Okay.
So if a man discerns out of seminary, we really look at it as, you came here in good faith, you sense the Lord leading you in this direction, and yes, there was some expense in tuition that was covered by the Archdiocese, but we thank you for laying down your life and giving God every opportunity to speak to your heart about a vocation to the priesthood.
Sure.
And so there is no expectation that they're going to pay that back.
So if a gentleman's in the college seminary and he is working, to pay off that debt there, and then he goes into the major seminary, and those expenses are covered, when he becomes a parish priest, assuming he goes all the way through and he becomes a parish priest, he still has that student debt with him that he needs to pay off over time. Is that true?
It can be.
Okay.
And so the debt that is accumulated really happens at the college level.
Right.
Because almost everything is covered at the graduate level. So when a seminarian comes out of St. John Vianney Seminary and he desires to go on to St. Paul Seminary, I have a debt limit of $40,000 of debt.
Okay.
And so if he's above that, he's going to have to work it down. He might have to work with a wonderful organization called La Beret that helps him raise money to lower his debt. But we want it below $40,000.
Sure.
And he can defer his loans for up to 4 years, but the interest is still building up. So he may enter into priesthood with $50,000 of debt with interest building up.
Sure.
And so that I think is manageable on a priest salary, but it's going to take some time to pay that off.
Sure.
So.
And do other dioceses handle it in a similar fashion, or can you at least really speak about our Archdiocese?
Sure. Every diocese is different. Every diocese is different. And some do absolutely nothing, but most do something. And some do much more than we do.
Okay.
So
if they talk to their Director of Vocations for their diocese, they could get the details.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. That's an important detail.
Yeah.
You have to know that before you're going in, and how exactly does this work?
Right, yeah. And if they didn't come to the college seminary, they got their degree somewhere else, and then they're coming into your major seminary, that $40,000 debt limit would be applicable and important to know.
That's right.
Yeah, okay, wonderful.
And really, what I'm trying to do is we want to be very responsible, and we don't want to lead someone down a road where they end up in crippling debt.
Right.
And then they're not able to function very well. And we do see men show up at the office saying, I think God's calling me to be a priest, and I ask them how much debt they have, and they say, I've got about $95,000. And I say, you know what? We do have $40,000 limit, and you need to somehow get below that.
Sure.
And here are some ways you could do that.
Yeah.
So we don't just turn them away, we give them options and say, here's some ways to work on this.
Yeah, it's very important. Yeah, definitely. So if you have a call to the priesthood, praying, talking to your parish priest, talking to the Director of Vocations, talking to your diocese, are all great places to start.
That's right.
Okay, wonderful. And we'll put links in the description to all the different places that you told us about so people can look at that. Are there any special prayers or recommendations for praying for vocations? Are there specific prayers that you would recommend other than being in adoration?
Be a man of prayer. Seek the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the Lord will lead you and guide you.
Yeah, definitely. Any last reminders or suggestions for someone discerning a vocation?
Yes. Don't drag your feet. I know a little bit about dragging your feet from a personal standpoint. If you sense that God is calling you, well, explore it, figure it out, and discern well. But don't drag your feet. God has a plan, and it's not going to become obvious what that plan is unless you really turn to the Lord and seek Him with all your heart, mind, and soul. And there's a whole process of discernment that is good and reliable. And then when you enter the seminary, if you enter the seminary, if your discernment wasn't quite solid, they're not going to ordain you because you entered the seminary.
Sure.
You don't have to worry about making the wrong decision. There's a lot of people along the way. Of course, you want to make the right decision, and we want you to do that as well. But there's a lot of help along the way to fine-tune that discernment and to see what the Lord might really truly be saying and doing in your heart. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate all the information. Super helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful to be here.
Yes. I hope you guys found that informational and helpful. If you are thinking about the priesthood or religious life, I'll have some links in the description where you can learn more, but do follow Father's advice and take it to prayer. Really ask the Lord what He wants you to do, because there is no wrong path if you're following God's will. Thanks for watching.